So, Rach, should Australia bid for a World Cup?
Well, it's a good question, Tim. Obviously, the Socceroos didn't get the result on the weekend, but there's been so much hype around the game and the team. I think we should really consider how and when we could put in a bid.
Well, you say how and when, so how and when?
Well, FIFA hasn't released its rules for 2038 at this stage, so I think, why not strike while the iron's hot? There are a lot more complicated rules. FIFA seems to be favouring a lot more joint bids, which is something we've investigated. But also timing-wise, Australia will have hosted 3 Olympic Games by the time Brisbane 2032 comes around. The world will be on us. Why not go for a World Cup for our next big event?
Yeah, and look, the people of Brisbane probably understand how long the lead time is for these things. So we might be saying, well, if we don't get 2038, it might be 2042, it might be 2046 or even beyond that. But it would be fantastic to put another major event on our schedule after 2032.
Yeah, it makes sense. 3 Olympic Games, the spotlight will be on Australia, on Brisbane. I think the federal government, Sports Minister and FIFA need to come together, Football Australia as well, to think about when and where we should strike.
Now, people with long memories would remember Australia's bid for the 2022 World Cup, where we got lots of promises and ended up with one vote for $50 million outlay. We were like the people of Springfield trying to get a monorail. They absolutely fleeced us. And there's a lot of embarrassment around that, but I think that might have turned around after our successful hosting of the 2023 Women's World Cup, which really changed the game for that event.
The fact that the women's game was Australia's first World Cup, naturally we would want to go after the men's game. We've looked at timing-wise, the rules are yet to be set for 2038, so I think we should consider what we're doing to capitalise off the spotlight of the Olympics.
So I spoke to a couple of Socceroo legends who obviously threw their support behind this, but in particular Craig Foster, who's really taken over from Johnny Warren in that godfather of the sport type role. And he said Australia should set itself the goal of not just bidding, but to be in a position to win the World Cup, saying that if we won the Men's and Women's World Cup, or if we had a goal to win the Men's and Women's World Cup, they're the last 2 great sporting achievements that this nation, that still remains for this nation. Is that getting a little bit carried away, do you think?
Well, I think with the spotlight of the games, growing the game at a grassroots level is really important. We had a couple of Brisbane juniors progress to the World Cup, and unfortunately Harrington didn't kick that goal at the very end, but it shows that there is growth in the game, and investment in grassroots could lead to bigger and stronger success in the future, and naturally we would want a World Cup. I don't think the timing is right to wait until we win a World Cup, given the lead time of 12 plus years that you need to secure a tournament, but maybe if we hosted and then went on to win, that could be a good progression.
Yeah, and the other thing that that's come up with the story that we wrote is that it's very difficult to host by yourself, and that we found that Australia had previously investigated a joint bid with New Zealand, which would tick off the Oceania box because they're in a different confederation, and Indonesia, where the sport is absolutely booming, and they've got, in Jakarta alone, they've got 2 80,000 seat stadiums. So that was the big issue in 2020 with the 2022 bid. We didn't have enough stadiums. But if we go in with a couple of other nations, all of a sudden that becomes less of a struggle.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Australia's sporting venues are known around the world. We've got the Cauldron in Brisbane with Suncorp Stadium. We've got the Coliseum at the MCG. So Australia has world-renowned sporting venues. I think the challenge is the number of rectangle stadiums. FIFA has been quite strong on sticking with that, but we've looked at the venues across Oceania and into Indonesia, and I think we could pull it off, and joint bids are becoming quite popular. We've seen Canada, America and Mexico host this World Cup really successfully, so I think FIFA would look favourably on people joining up and overcoming those economic challenges.
Well, actually, the next World Cup is hosted by 6 nations, can you believe, but across 3 confederations. So it's Portugal and Spain, plus Morocco, who are very close together. But because it's the 100th anniversary of the World Cup, there's games in Uruguay, Paraguay and Argentina, if you can believe it. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. In fact, it's probably the way they want to go. Unfortunately, the 2034 World Cup is solely to be held in Saudi Arabia, which is in the Asian Confederation, which is the same as us. But they've got a lot of problems building stadiums from scratch, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think that is the challenge. Unfortunately, Australia isn't part of Oceania where we particularly know its geography, but I think partnering up is a really good model moving forward. It shows football diplomacy, international diplomacy, and really helps people overcome those economic challenges. And we can really spotlight the entire region. The challenge is, the opportunity is 2038. The rules keep on changing. FIFA's open to more teams, less teams, particular venues. So I think with Victoria Park on the table and other major stadiums, it could be a really good time to give ourselves a good pitch.
Now, the problem we had with the 2022 bid is AFL in particular were very hesitant to release grounds. FIFA have rules that you have to basically hand over grounds for 2 months so that the surfaces can get up to scratch. So there'd be a lot of compensation and there would be massive disruption to both the AFL and the NRL seasons. So I think really it has to come from the Prime Minister, such a push, because it can't come from the FFA. They'll just be told to get stuffed by the two big sports. But we really need this from the top down. We need Albo to get excited. He's put the shirt on enough times over the last couple of weeks. Maybe you could keep it on.
I think Brisbane could be a great example of using more stadiums. So we had the challenge during the Women's World Cup where the Broncos were booted to the Gabba. That was very unusual for them, but we proved that we can do it. With Victoria Park in the mix, I think that opens it up even more to the flexibility of having more than just AFL and cricket at Victoria Park Stadium, because people want to get more bang for their buck out of that venue. So this could be a really good opportunity. To read the full story, go to couriermail.com.au.